Okay.
Okay, welcome to the College of Complexes. This is our 459th meeting since we started in February 2009. We put a speaker on every week, a different subject. We require a speaker to take a position on an issue or express a point of view. They had to be for or against something. We don't care what it is. We give them an hour to make a presentation, up to an hour. If they go over an hour, we cut them off. If anybody interrupts the speaker, we remind the interrupter we listen only one full at a time. That's one of our rules. Then we have questions and answers from the audience of the speaker, not speeches. Then we have remarks from follows everyone in this audience that wants, so gets 5 minutes at the podium here to respond to what the speaker said for or against. And our speaker gets the last word, gets a comment, and close the meeting. That's how it works. But before we introduce our speaker, we have time for announcements. So anybody have any announcements they want to make, now's the time to do it.
I got one.
Okay.
Happy Mother's Day if it applies.
Would you like one person to say it? No. He announced Happy Mother's Day.
Dallas Philosophers Forum is having our last meeting this Tuesday, the 14th, and it will be at the El Phoenix at Forest Lane and Webb Chapel, not the one on Skillman. If you go to Skillman, there won't be anybody there. So, and it's going to be, our speakers are going to be talking about the philosophy of energy, which should be kind of interesting. So I just want to let you know that we start at 7:30. If you get there earlier to eat, you can enjoy a conversation with some other people, and it costs $5.
Who's the speaker this time?
Briggle, no, Riggs.
I thought it was somebody new.
I think it's Riggle. I think the guy's name is Riggle. But you can look it up on the website.
You might want that here with you. I don't do it, I just don't have time.
Any other announcements? Now's the time. We got the Happy Mother's Day announcement made, all right? And any other announcements? No? Okay, well, next week is our, what makes us human? That's Jen Lee. She's a PhD in anthropology. She'll be here talking about what makes us human. That should be good. On June 15th, what makes you who you are? That's David Alec, MD. He'll be talking about that, so that should be good too. On June 22nd, are you being treated adequately for your brain problems? That's Daniel Hurley. He'll be talking about that. He's been here once before. And I didn't have, on May 25th, Does Time Really Exist? That's Patrick Mulroy. He'll be talking about that. June 1st, on the coming stock market crash, Dr. Ravi Bhatri is a professor of macro and international economics at SMU. He'll be talking about that. It should be interesting. That's on June 1st. Anyway, I don't want to read all this. You have itineraries in front of you. You can look it up. And our speaker tonight is Linda Thibodeau. I keep forgetting. I have a good memory, but it's short. It's my problem. Anyway, she's a professor at University of Texas. I gotta turn on my light here so I can read. I should have turned it on in the first place. There we go. She's a professor at the University of Texas, audiologist, speech language pathologist, CCASLP. We'll discuss how a person with hearing challenges and many possible solutions to consider, ranging from personal devices worn in or on the ear to surgically implanted technology. She will show that the decision regarding technology depends heavily on the type of and degree of hearing loss, but technology alone may not address all the communication challenges one experiences. Linda argues that the typical path taken by a person trying to solve hearing challenges is now in competition with the new models of service delivery, including the shopping in big box stores, purchasing devices online, and finding apps on the smartphone. She further contends that these options challenge the model approved by the American Academy of Audiology. It supports the doctorate of audiology credential as the optimum professional to serve those with hearing challenges. Linda shows at the University of Texas at Dallas doctorate of audiology programs ranked as #4 in the nation train students in a 4-year program to evaluate challenges associated with hearing loss and explore solutions with the adult or child and their family. This typically includes a network of technology along with non-technology solutions that are introduced, practiced in group settings on a monthly basis, or an intensive week-long experience known as Summer Intensive Auditory Revitalization Conference. She concludes that the AUD model for addressing hearing loss solutions is far better for anyone who has experienced a loss of hearing than the more generic options readily available at Tempe Financial Savings. So without further ado, please give a very warm welcome to Linda Tavoe.
You'll have to come this way. We got little hands.
Well, thank you, and I'm really happy to be here at a meeting that does so much to make sure you can hear the speaker. It's my dream. 2 microphones, a pass-around microphone, speakers. This is wonderful. So I'm assuming, but I'll double check. Can everybody hear me okay? Because we don't want to do a talk about hearing if people can't hear.
What's that?
So, I know. Some people still ask though. Okay, yeah, is that all right? The one nice thing about when you turn that on, I don't know if you noticed, the paper was here. It reflected the light on his face. And if you were depending on any speech reading, lip visual cues, that really put a nice illumination of that. So that's what I'm talking about tonight, is that it's not just about the technology that goes on our ears or on our phones and things like that, but so many other things that can help us with communication challenges. So let's see here if I can get back to the slides. There we go. And I guess the protocol is not to ask questions till the end. So I'll keep talking, and if you nodding your head or scratching, I'll be happy to answer any questions at any time. And if we save it for the end, that's fine too. So I am from University of Texas at Dallas. Before that, I was at UT Austin. The program at UT Austin is a great program as well, but it's a little fish in a giant pond. And a lot of people didn't even know we existed on that campus. Here, we're associated with the Callier Center. Those are our 2 buildings downtown in the medical center. And we are a big fish in a little pond of the University of Texas at Dallas. And that gives us a lot of resources, a lot of recognition, and brought me from Austin, which many people thought, are you crazy? You left a job in Austin to come to Dallas? And I was like, no, my whole family, we're okay. We didn't need counseling. We wanted to come. And so I wanted to be in the medical center. Also, UT Dallas was one of the first programs in the country to move from the master's degree of entry-level audiology to the 4-year doctorate degree. So our students apply from all over the country, and with their bachelor's in either communication disorders, psychology, engineering, pre-med, and then they decide on this field, and then they come to us with their bachelor's and have the 4-year degree to get their doctorate of audiology. So it's a clinical doctorate as opposed to a PhD or the doctorate of philosophy. So we have classes, a lot of classes down in our buildings on the medical center campus, but we also have clinics at the main campus in Richardson. So this is our building in the middle of the campus. We're in the Behavioral and Brain Sciences School, and then these are our 2 clinics on main campus. So the first clinic, this one, was developed shortly after I came in '96, and now has been replaced with a new and improved building, but that opened up this building for research, and so I'm really excited about that.
Do you do testing in the building?
Yes, we do testing at both locations. So that's the Callier Center of Communication Disorders, where our students get the clinical training, but it's a full-scale operating clinic. Whether students are away on spring break, you can still get your hearing aid fixed, which is not like many other university programs that have a clinic just operating to train the students, which is the way we were at UT Austin. This is a full speech and hearing center that operates irrespective of and has its own budgets, income, goals to meet, etc. But we work really well together. It's a wonderful place to be a faculty member and do research. So I do need to acknowledge several components that have made my work possible. You're going to hear a lot today about Phonak equipment, and that is a hearing aid manufacturer that has loaned me a lot of equipment for teaching, and I've done a lot of research with their products. And then these other foundations and audiology practices, our Texas Workforce Commission, and then we currently have a grant from NIH to develop apps on the smartphone that will do more processing to enhance your speech understanding and then send it wirelessly to your hearing aid. So we're in our 3rd year of that project. And I also need to give you a disclosure, which I'm required by the university to be very upfront about my financial relationships. I do serve as a consultant for Phonak on an as-needed basis, so sometimes they put together a conference and they invite me to suggest speakers, things like that. Or we do research with their technology that I design. They don't tell me how to do it. And then I am a consultant with many school districts. I see all the children with hearing aids that are in Allen, ISD, Lovejoy, Wiley, Princeton, Melissa, all those districts that don't have enough students yet to hire a full-time audiologist. I was doing Frisco, but they just hired their own full-time audiologist. So as more and more students are identified early before they leave the hospital, they get amplification and they show up on the doorstep at kindergarten ready to go into a classroom with children with normal hearing. So our population in the public schools and the need for different types of technology is increasing quite a bit. So I do that as well. Okay, so today I wanted to go over kind of the typical path to getting a hearing device, and then what are some of the options that you might be presented with, and just to give you kind of that background and framework. And then what are some of our challenges with new service delivery models that has kind of put our profession in a little bit of a uproar about, oh, are we still going to have a job if you can go to Walgreens and buy a hearing aid or wherever? And I'm not threatened. Of course, I'm in academia, but I don't see that we'll not be teaching our students to get the doctorate of audiology, because as I'm going to argue today, there are many things other than just what we put behind our ear that helps us improve our communication. One of which is to slow down your speech and put pauses between your words. So I'm going to try to remind myself to do that. But one of the things we work on in our workshops is giving feedback. So if anybody needs me to slow down, just feel free to go like this, and I'll use that as my reminder that I need to add some more pauses between my words. They actually did some research and showed that if you ask the person you're talking to speak clearly and put pauses between their words, you can improve your understanding as much or more as you could with buying a high sophisticated digital hearing aid. So it's your choice. Take it out of your pocket or just ask for what you need. So, and then we'll actually propose the debate and I'll argue my position on that. So the traditional path of addressing communication challenges, we should start with the anatomy of the ear so we can understand that. Let's see if now I'm going to use this pointer. So basically we have the outer part of our ear where sound enters, and then it goes into the middle part of the ear where there are the 3 bones that you remember from school: hammer, anvil, stirrup, that then receive those vibrations and actually do a transformation of the sound wave power to a very intense power that then stimulates the fluid in the inner ear or the cochlea. So 3 parts to our ear: the outer part, the middle part, and the inner part. Then when the fluid is stimulated in the inner part of the ear, the sensory organ is there, tiny hair cells that then when they are activated send neural impulses up to our brain. So the reason it's important to go over our anatomy first is to understand that when we put on a traditional hearing aid, we're sending sound through the outer ear, the middle ear, to the inner ear through the traditional sound wave pattern. I'm going to also tell you about cochlear implants, and what they do is deliver the sound directly to the cochlea. So you don't have the sound wave coming in, you have electrical impulses that are stimulating the cochlea and send the neural message up to the brain. So when we do the hearing test, we need to determine, is there a problem in the outer ear, the middle ear, or is it the inner ear? Because the first two, outer ear and middle ear, can often be addressed by an otolaryngologist.
Yes.
So you might have wax in the outer part blocking, you might have stiffness of the bones that can be addressed surgically. Unfortunately, most of our hearing loss as we get older happens in the inner ear, and that it cannot be addressed surgically in terms of repairing the hearing or restoring hearing in the inner ear. There is some research on hair cell regeneration, and it is in clinical trials now with humans. And again, our profession was like, well, now what? If we're going to be able to restore hearing in the inner ear, what's left for us to do? Well, not everybody will be a candidate for that. It won't work for everybody. And like I said, there's still basic communication challenges that we have, even for people with normal hearing, that we can address in determining who's a candidate for that kind of treatment. Okay, so let's move on from our anatomy and talk about then when you go to address or inquire about a hearing challenge. The first thing we're going to need to know is, what is the sensitivity of your system? How well are you able to hear? And we graph that on what we call an audiogram. And that shows how loud we have to make it for you to just barely be able to hear it across a range of pitches. So here is what we call our familiar sounds audiogram that shows the pitches that we test from low pitch, 125, on up to the high pitches of 8,000 hertz. Now, if you were to go out and buy a stereo, you might look at the frequency response of the stereo and see that it has a range of, maybe 100 hertz to 15,000 hertz. But we don't test that much range typically because we're interested in how you hear speech. We want to help you communicate. And as you can see, we've got some speech sounds listed up there. It's kind of small to see it on here, but we've got some consonants down in the low pitches, and we've got some high-pitched sounds like the S and the TH that are way up there, high pitches, and they're very soft. They're only at about 10, 20 decibels. And that's if you're standing close to somebody. If you move further away, then those high-pitched sounds even get harder to hear. So typically, as we get older and we start losing our hearing, we're going to miss those sounds first, those high-pitched sounds. But the good news is we probably already knew the English language, and we kind of fill in and predict. And we start relying on the context. Oh, they're talking about bowling, and she said get the ball, so she probably needs all of us to go get balls. You just fill it in. You don't even stop and think about it. And then if you add watching somebody's face with it, you can go a pretty long time without any accommodations and come in then to get your hearing test and find out that you have a pretty significant hearing loss, depending on how well you use a lot of those kinds of strategies. Okay, so we've also shown some pictures of some real-world sounds like trucks, lawnmowers, very low pitch, helicopters, telephone ringing, higher pitch, and then the softer ones, of course, the watch ticking is very soft, leaves rustling, etc. And sometimes we don't even need to hear that sound. A lot of times when people get their new technology, they go home and they go, well, now I have a lot of repairs around the house. The faucets are leaking, my car is making a funny sound. So they didn't hear all that before. Okay, so here is an audiogram graphing a typical hearing loss. Again, the low pitches down here, high pitches on your right side, and the circles represent your right ear, and the X's represent your left ear. So, in this case, there's a pretty symmetrical hearing loss. The right ear and the left ear are pretty similar. And it's pretty typical of probably somebody that has had some noise exposure, maybe around, 75, 80 years old. It all varies among individuals. But typically, if we look at degree of hearing loss as a function of age, men lose their hearing more quickly, typically because of more noise exposure, and we typically lose these high pitches first. And I like to tell a little story about why it's the high pitches first. The way that cochlea is arranged, that's snail-shaped, when the vibrations enter the cochlea, they enter the high frequency nerve fibers first. So that wave of vibration goes into the cochlea and hits those high frequencies, and then it travels all the way to the center part of that snail, and that's the low frequencies. So imagine if I took that cochlea and I unrolled it in this room such that the base of the cochlea, or the beginning, was at the door there. And then, so that's high pitches down there, and then the low pitches are over here. If this room had carpet and everybody walked in to this room, what's going to show more wear and tear? That end of the room or this end of the room? That end of the room where everybody walks. So basically, whether it's a high frequency sound or a low frequency sound, it's got to travel through that high frequency portion of the cochlea. Hence, we have more wear and tear on that part of the sensory organism, and that's why we lose our high frequencies first. Now, there's other reasons you can lose your hearing, and I've just put some of the typical causes here. Noise exposure is a common one, and again, it'll enter that high frequency region first, so we typically see high frequency hearing loss. I've been talking about aging. One of the first signs is our inability to understand speech and noise when we start having trouble with our hearing. Genetics, you might have family history of hearing loss, that can play a part. Some medications are ototoxic, and hopefully physicians discuss that with you before you start taking them. Things like aspirin in large quantities, or some of the drugs used in chemotherapies, but typically they'll let you know. And often it's a choice. I need the drug, I'm going to be losing my hearing, and so then you can do some things to prepare for that. And then diseases, and someone already asked me tonight about Meniere's disease, which is a common one that we see that affects the inner part of the ear, commonly between ages 30 and 50, and may have a fluctuating hearing loss with it, some ringing in your ears or that tinnitus, and a very classic symptom of that, along with that, is dizziness. And so that's often someone that we will see to help with a device, and we want something that's really adjustable because their hearing may change, and there's many ways that can be treated so that people can get some relief, especially from the vertigo part of it. And there's also many tinnitus relief programs now too, that actually I could have put into my argument, and I didn't think about that, but it'll come up in a little bit here. Okay, so what are some of the technology options? You've gone to get your hearing tested, you know that you have some hearing loss, and then can we provide technology that will help restore some of those sounds that you can't hear? So this is just an overview of all the different styles of a personal device. So we have what we call an open ear. It's still a piece that goes behind your ear, but it goes in and just fits with like a little dome so that some of the sound can enter naturally. That's why we call it open, because natural sound can enter. Then we have behind the ear, which I'm going to pass around, that looks like this, but what I'm passing around and what's shown there doesn't show the ear mold. You have to have an ear mold or some kind of tip to make it secure into the ear and direct the sound into your ear. Then we have what we call custom aids, where they take an impression of your ear and all the electronics are put into the device that fits into the concha of your ear. So that's in the ear. And then we have some that are smaller that go just in the canal. If you have a large enough canal, they can put all of this into a little piece that just goes in your canal. Then we have the completely in the canal, which goes down even further. And you can see from the pictures, you wouldn't even know necessarily that person has one. Although sometimes you see a little clear rod sticking out, and sometimes, you know, it kind of looks like Frankenstein. You've got the two pieces, but you got to have something to grab a hold of to pull it out. And there's some that are even put in by the otolaryngologists that are all the way down at the eardrum, and you just sleep in them. You don't even take them out. You control those with a remote control. My bias about the size and style of the hearing aid is that in general, our communication challenges will be facilitated when the people that you're talking to know that you wear a hearing aid. Because then they can see, oh, okay, well, I shouldn't turn my head when I'm talking, that doesn't help, or I shouldn't cover my mouth. And so it's just a reminder, and Then it also helps with acceptance of the hearing loss, and we're being advocates. This morning I spoke at Hearing Loss Association for America, which is a big advocacy group, and so it helps people know that this is a device that can help me hear, but now they do so much more. They connect with our phone, we get phone calls through them. I'm going to tell you some more crazy things that these do. So my dream is that someday we all wear something on our ears, and it will do a lot for us. And I'm not much of a proponent of hiding it down in the ear canal, especially when I'm working with the kids. It's what color do you want? Oh, that's so cool, and make them feel proud about having it, and not something that they're trying to hide. And I know one little boy was telling me, you know, I got superpower ears just like my grandma has superpower ears. She's got one too, and he was excited about it. And I thought, well, that's great, because if he saw his grandma, you know, trying to put something way down in his ear, her ear, and hide it, then he might feel like he's got to hide it as well. And we ask the kids to wear more technology when they're at school so they can hear the teacher better too. So it's a process. We have to help them with that that acceptance. Okay, so the modern styles of hearing aids behind the ear are very capable of interfacing with a lot of other pieces of technology. So the smaller you get, the harder it's going to be to get the batteries in and out, adjust the controls. We do have remote controls. We can now control them with our phone too. But if we can put the technology in the behind the ear hearing aid, then we have more options when we go to group settings to actually hear better. So the one that I'm going to pass around, you'll notice has a piece on the base here. That's actually a receiver that's going to pick up from a transmitter or microphone that a speaker can wear. So that one's a little bit different than what you're seeing here, but many hearing aids can have that piece added. And it doesn't just have to be a Phonak hearing aid. It can be other manufacturers, and we can put the little receiver on it. But if you get the smaller ones that, you know, are use the real small batteries, size 312, that just doesn't have enough power to drive one of these receivers that'll pick up from this transmitter. So behind the ear and colorful would be my favorite for interfacing with all the technology that can be of benefit. Okay, so what about cochlear implants? Well, hearing aids are for anyone with mild to severe to profound loss, but even in the severe to profound range, sometimes we can't get enough benefit for you with a cochlear implant, or the sounds are loud, but you can't understand them. So then you might be recommended to have a complete workup for a cochlear implant. And these are absolutely phenomenal if you're a candidate for them. So you would have to have severe to profound hearing loss. And what happens is you have an internal component that is inserted surgically with a little coil of wire that goes into the cochlea. When that's all healed up in about 3 weeks, then you go back to the audiologist and you get these external pieces that then pick up the sound. So it looks like a hearing aid, it has a microphone, picks up the sound, but it converts it into electrical pulses that are sent through this magnet to the internal component that the surgeon put in. So some people say that it kind of sounds like robot speech at first, but we're implanting babies under 1 year of age. So they don't even know what sound was like. They're born completely deaf. We can identify that early. We again have to do a workup. You have to have an auditory nerve to use this device. Unfortunately, we've had a few reports at meetings of radiologists that didn't read the report right, and kids got implants and it didn't work because they didn't have an auditory nerve to carry the signal to the brain. So it's very important that everyone's patient with that process. So it's usually about a month to get all the workup done with the MRIs and the testing that they need to do to be sure you're a candidate. Interestingly, even people who have hearing loss just on one side, they might be normal hearing on this side, are now getting cochlear implants on the side that's completely unusable for amplification. And these kids, like I said, getting implanted early, and even adults go through maybe a little more of an adjustment process to map that sound onto what they're used to hearing, but can be very successful. These kids, you would listen to their speech and not even know they had a cochlear implant on. Talking on the telephone, no visual cues, all the way through school in classes with children who have normal hearing. So, that's the technology typical overview, but I'm going to add on to that what is my main interest, because I know that these aren't going to solve everything in noisy environments. What I learned early on was that if we move a microphone closer to the source, that's going to help. So I want to talk about networks next. Yes.
Yes, are these terribly expensive?
We'll talk about the pricing, but hearing the hearing aid itself, and this can run anywhere from $800 to $2,500. The receivers run typically around $1,000, but there's other ways to get wireless microphone signals into the hearing aid as well. So,
Cochlear?
oh, the cochlear implant, now that's very expensive, and insurance will pay for that. So that's about a $50,000 device, and then the cost of the surgery. Yes, can be very expensive. Okay, so if you think about our communication scenarios that we encounter, we might be talking to one person on a telephone, maybe with 2 people at a table, or maybe more than 3 people in an arrangement. And the personal amplification that you wear on one ear or both ears is just one part of what could be an integrated network to help you in those situations. So if it's just a one-way or maybe a 2-way conversation, you could maybe get by with your personal device. But when we want to deal with that whole complex of communication, we may need more. We may need to introduce a wireless device and create a network of devices that will help us, whether it's listening to the television, talking on the telephone, hearing from a lecture from a distance. So there's a lot of different ways that now all these devices can be networked. And it gets very complicated. We hear the word Bluetooth, so a lot of times we think, oh, that's a Bluetooth, because it's just not connected with a wire. But there's multiple types of Bluetooth, and then there's multiple types of digital transmission. And what's happening in our field is that manufacturers are developing their own digital signal. So this is Phonak Roger system, and it is a digital system. So it's digital like Bluetooth is digital, but it's a different protocol. So the way the engineers code the acoustic signal into zeros and ones is specific to Phonak. It's their secret recipe, and it works only with their Phonak receivers. But you can put Phonak receivers on other hearing aids. But other manufacturers make maybe a smaller clip-on microphone like this that will only work with their hearing aid. So manufacturers have gotten in a big digital race to create their product that keeps you dedicated to their product, so to speak. So that is one of the challenges of training students in this field, and also keeping up with the technology, because it's changing so fast. Speaking of which, we have an explosion of hearing assistive technology options. So I'll just try to give you an overview of these to give you a sense of what I'm trying to convey is that it might be one step to go into an office and walk out with one of these on one ear. But it's another whole realm of information to know how all of this can connect wirelessly, which might really be the way to solve your communication challenges. So the basic wireless arrangement consists of a transmitter. So here's one that's used frequently in the schools that transmits the signal wirelessly to the receiver, which here's an example of one that's just added to the base of the hearing aid. And there's many types of remote microphones. So these are some of the different ones by the different manufacturers. And like I said, that one on the far right, or your left, is Connect Clip. So that's going to work only with Oticon hearing aids. That one is the Phonak Roger. We'll send to any receiver, which we can put on other manufacturers' hearing aids. Resound only works with Resound hearing aids, etc. So, but many manufacturers have those options now. Then we can connect these also hearing aids to cell phones, either by wearing what we call a streamer around our neck that's going to be paired with your cell phone and then pick up the signal and send it to both hearing aids. So research has shown that rather than holding the phone up to one hearing aid, you hear better when the signal goes to both hearing aids. And so those are some other devices that we call streamers that send the signal to your hearing aid. That's often what we will use when we have a really small behind the ear hearing aid or canal aid. So if you really do want the one that's all the way down in your ear, but you still want to have phone calls to both ears, then you can wear one of these, and if you really want to wear it under your shirt, it'll work that way too. So again, that's why it's important for us to figure out what your goals are and how we can help you. And now we have phones that connect wirelessly to hearing aids. Oticon has hearing aids called Open that connect directly to the phone, no wires, nothing around your neck. Starkey has hearing aids called Halo that connect directly. And Phonak was the first company that came out with the hearing aid that connects to iPhone and Android. So at first, the hearing aids just went to iPhone because iPhone was the only one that had the Bluetooth, what they call LE protocol. Whenever you're doing anything with Bluetooth, you're going to take a lot of power on this hearing aid to get that. So it wasn't until iPhone came out with a protocol called Bluetooth Low Energy that we were able to have hearing aids that were small enough on your ear that batteries lasted 8 to 10 hours a day that would connect with a smartphone, an iPhone. And now Phonak has it for iPhone or Android phone. So that's been really exciting for our field. Again, even a lot of audiologists that know about these and say, yes, now you can connect to your phone, didn't tell the patient that you could also use that phone as a remote microphone. So your phone has a microphone on it. You go into your accessibility menu on your phone and you go to something called Live Listen. And you can take that phone and set it in the middle of a table or hand it to your communication partner on a long drive in a noisy car, and that will pick up as a microphone, just like this microphone that could pick up and transmit to your hearing aid. So those hearing aids are called made for iPhone hearing aids, and that's a nice feature. However, one big drawback. I don't know if any of you are engineers and work with Bluetooth technology, but there is some delay. So you're going to get a little echo with that signal because you're still going to hear the person talking through your microphone here, and then you're going to hear it coming up just milliseconds later, and it sounds like you're in a big auditorium. But in a very noisy environment where you can't hear it all, and you hand somebody that phone, and I can even turn off this microphone, it can be helpful. It can be definitely very helpful. And part of our research is exploring that. How much does that help compared to other devices? Okay, I should have tried this little video before. Let's see if it works. This is a little girl, and, oh wait a minute. This is a video of a little girl that was fit with a device. See, I have my sound on. I'm just gonna see if the sound was up here, because I didn't hear it come on. Yep, sound's all the way up. Let's see if it'll play from this mode. But I'm an advocate for this wireless technology across the lifespan. So this is a little girl, I think she's 18 months old, and she was going to a lot of therapy. She wore cochlear implants, and they spent a lot of time in the car. And the car was noisy. And she kept ripping her cochlear implants off because it just sounded like, imagine it was electrical signal going up to her brain. And I mean, there were times when the parents had to literally take the back seat out of the car because it's a magnet, right? That is connected to the internal portion. So when she flipped it off her head and threw it, it went under the seat and got attracted to the metal under the seat. So they couldn't find it till they took out the seat. And then the mother was just like, no, we're not wearing this when we're driving. And that's a lot of communication time in Dallas that she was missing out with her daughter. So I started a project to see if these devices could be helpful for parents. Let's just see if this will play. You see the visual here, but I'm not hearing the audio come out. I wonder if it's connecting to doing out here. I know what I'll do. Well, she's riding in a car. I'll narrate for you. And the mother's wearing a transmitter. There she is in the back. Okay, let me have this microphone. Oh, it is coming out. It's coming out. Okay, right now she doesn't have the microphone on. Check, check. And then we put the microphone on the mother. So when the mother wore the microphone, let me get back over here. When the mother wore the microphone, she could totally be engaged with the child who's sitting in the back seat and carrying on conversation. The child's happy. She wasn't pulling off her system anymore. This little girl started wearing these devices early on with her cochlear implants, and I think she's in 6th grade now. She's reading at a high school level. She's in a private school. Her language just exploded, and she was dismissed from therapy at age 3.5. She got implanted as a baby, and so I think part of it was the use of the wireless technology, and the mother pushed forward and had all her teachers wear it and so forth. Interestingly, I am sometimes encountering adults who say, these hearing aids aren't working for me anymore. I wonder if I should get a cochlear implant. And so I said, well, have you tried one of these wireless microphones yet? And he hadn't tried it yet. So I gave him that opportunity, and when he listened, he was able to hear what we say 12 dB better. He could hear speech that was 12 decibels softer than what he could without it in background noise when we use this microphone to his current hearing aids. So he said, well, I'm in my 70s. I don't know that I want to go through the surgery. I don't know that I want to go through the adjustment to the cochlear implant. So he just bought the Roger Pen, and he's been using that and has been totally happy with it and got new hearing aids. So that is one option that I wish adults could try before they make the decision of the cochlear implant, to see if that's enough benefit for them. Once you go the cochlear implant route, you can't go back, because it's inserted into the cochlea and you're gonna not be able to go back to auditory hearing anymore. It's electrical hearing. So one of the options for adults is a wireless pen like this, called the Roger Pen. Now Roger is the name that they decided on for their digital protocol. They didn't ask me, because I would have said not a good idea. Because sometimes I'll be at the schools and I'll see a child that needs to get new technology, and I'll say, you know, we really need to get Roger for him. And the teacher will say, well, when can Roger come? And I was like, no, it's the name of the technology. So you might have heard about FM, and you have FM in your car. That's frequency modulation. Well, Roger is DM, digital modulation. So we have much less interference, we have a much cleaner signal. We did research with this technology, and well, actually I have two Roger systems on. This one is called the Roger Pen, and this one is called the Roger Select. And what's unique about this one is that it's designed to pick up around the table of people's talking. Every time it goes vertical, it's going to focus on this microphone that's right below my mouth. But when I put it horizontal, it's got microphones that come on all around the circle and pick up from all around the table. The research that we did showed this can give you 30% more understanding around a table of people than the pen just sitting in the middle of the table. The pen is very directional, so you could be standing at a conference and have a conversation and just point to one, point to the other, point to the other. This is called Roger Select, so when I'm at the table, if I decide, oh, they're really saying something important, I want to block out all these others, then I just tap that microphone and it just picks up from the one primarily and focuses that in. So this has been out for maybe 3 years now, and is very useful. Yes?
Does that also, what's the word I want to use? That the ambient noise, I mean.
Is it going to pick up?
Does it pick it up?
Yes. So any advertisement that you see that says eliminates background noise, you should call the FDA and give that company's name to them, because there is no device on the market that will eliminate background noise without taking the speech with it. Okay? We can do some things to reduce the noise, but eliminate is not the right word. Yes?
You just answered.
Okay, all right. So these are Roger devices, and like I said, they can connect to this hearing aid with this receiver on here. And so you can get up to 60% improvement when you use one of these compared to nothing, just listening with your hearing aid. Focus on an individual speaker. We can connect either one of these to the cell phone. We can connect them to the television. So they have a lot of benefit to using them. Yes?
Give us any idea about the cost of the pen?
The pen is about $1,000. So, but the clip-on is about $500. So they have the clip-on is similar, not quite as sophisticated in terms of the directionality, and doesn't have Bluetooth to connect to your phone.
Okay, when I'm using my ReSound
Resound?
for the telephone, how would the pen augment or interfere with it?
So if you have the Resound microphone that will accept a little receiver, there's some that let us, has 3 little holes on the bottom of it, and we can put the receiver into the, it's in that piece you wear around your neck, or the microphone. The microphone. If it has the 3 little holes in it, then we can put a Roger receiver into that, and then you can benefit from the pen. So they've tried to make it so that you can interface with a lot of the manufacturers that are already out there. So here, the man that decided to get the Roger pen instead of the cochlear implant, we thought it might be interesting to compare that price-wise. So the cost of one implant and all the rehab that it would take to be successful with that would be $50,000 to $100,000. You'd have the surgery, the cochlear implant, the rehabilitation. How many Roger pen systems could you buy? For $50,000, you could buy 45 pens and 19 clip-ons and the receivers for your hearing aids. So you could have a mic on everybody in this room and hear them as if they're 6 inches from your ear, because we can network these together too. So at a table, we could have a mic on each person that's transmitting to your receivers. So they're capable of being networked. So it was interesting to me that he made that decision to get the cochlear, to get the Roger pen that was money out of his pocket. $1,000, $1,000, $1,000, typically $3,000 out of his pocket. But if he had gone cochlear implant route, insurance would have covered it all. So we have some work to do with our third-party reimbursement programs, because you know, there's a lot of risk when you go under anesthesia and have surgery, and show me that you don't benefit from this system. And I have yet to see somebody who doesn't benefit from moving the microphone closer to the source. It's a given. Okay, so the typical path also, besides this technology that I just started kind of with the anatomy and the technology, but equally important, and maybe the first thing that we do even in an appointment, is assess the lifestyle. We need to know what the challenges are that you're facing so that we can decide out of this whole array of devices what we can do to help you. So it occurred to me after being in this field for quite a while that audiologists have a personality type, and the type of personality that, because I'm a speech pathologist too, so I came from both sides where the reports are longer, you have, you know, somebody to work with over time, and it's not like, oh, I see you in an hour and then you're out and I made a difference in your life, which can have, one of the reasons audiology attracted me. I can make a difference in somebody's life in a shorter period of time than I could as a speech language pathologist. But I also found out that audiologists like to graph things, and maybe like numbers and things like that. So when we said to the audiologist, oh, you should find out about their communication difficulties and their lifestyle, well, they would forget. And over many research articles and surveys, we found out that people could go in and buy a hearing aid and walk out, and the audiologist never even asked if they have a flashing smoke alarm. And I'm like, that's our job. We're here to help you with your hearing. So I thought the way that I could convince audiologists to remember to do this would be to put it on a graph. So I came up with a tool that I think should be used in every audiological appointment called the telegram. And the way it works is every letter, I love acronyms, audiology loves acronyms. So telegram stands for, how are you doing on the telephone? Which, do you have a landline phone? Do you have a cell phone? How are you doing? Do you work? Do you have trouble in your job? What are you doing there? Do you know about American with Disabilities Act? Do you like to travel? Do you know when you travel that you can ask the hotel for assistive technology? What do you like to do for entertainment? Do you like to go to the Meyerson? Do you know what devices they have there? Will those devices interface with your device? Are you engaged in group activities, and how well are you doing that? What do you like to do for recreation? Were you an avid bird watcher and now you can't hear the birds because of hearing loss? How can we help you with that? Can you hear the alarms? Smoke alarm, doorbell, alarm clock. Everybody should be asked that question before you make your decisions about things. And then, do you live alone, or you have a communication partner? Do you live with teenagers? That's another whole communication. Okay, so then we plot it. So hopefully audiogram on one side, telegram on the other. Kind of fits, right? Telegram has to do with communication, except one day my 10-year-old who helped me came up with this. We put all the sticky notes on the table, and I said, we have to make a word out of this. So we came up and I said, oh, telegram. And then about a month later, she said, Mom, what's a telegram? I was like, oh, it is a dying word, isn't it?
Yeah.
But, and one of my colleagues that I really respect, I ran it by hand, he was the one that kept telling everybody in the meetings, ask about this, ask about this. I said, I came up with a tool, what do you think? And he goes, yeah, it's good, but telegram kind of has a negative connotation for me, because he was World War II. One of our fathers of audiology after World War II, and he said whenever anybody heard telegram, that was bringing bad news. So it is what it is, but hopefully it reminds us to ask these questions. And so in this particular case, this person was having some difficulty with a landline phone, a lot of difficulty on his job, did not know much about legislation, some difficulty in groups, having difficulty in bingo. That was his recreation. He liked to play bingo. You can make up the symbols that'll help you remember these things and then come up with your recommendations. And then he didn't have trouble with his alarm, clock or doorbell, but didn't have a smoke alarm, or couldn't hear it when his hearing aids were off. So do we help him get a vibrating system? And then he lived alone. So even more important that we get that smoke alarm addressed. So for that individual, we may suggest a trial with an FM system or a Rogers system integrated with his behind-the-ear hearing aid with multiple microphone options. So by using the audiogram and the telegram, we can help explain what's happening in his hearing and sensory loss, and then present the array of communication options. Now, I'm not saying, you're asking me how much does this cost? I'm not saying the day you walk in to find out what you're going to make your decision, you walk out with everything. You may, but we need to think about it up front, because what if down the road you do want to connect to something at the Meyerson, and then you've made a purchase for a hearing aid that actually when you get to the Meyerson you're going to have to take it out and put on their system that's not tuned for your particular hearing loss. So we need to be thinking long term, what's the best solutions, what package can we do? Okay, some of the research I just wanted to share with the digital wireless systems. What we're looking here is the percent correct on the ordinate, and along here is the noise level. So soft noise, quiet, on up to a very, very noisy environment. And the three bars that we have are an old FM system, which we call fixed, because it just kept the voice of the speaker at a fixed level. An adaptive system, which said, hey, there's quite a bit of noise in here, I'm going to bring that speaker's voice up even more, so it adapted based on the environment. And then the adaptive digital, which is the Rogers system. So, as you can see, in the quiet environments, the bars are pretty similar. The technology was very similar. It all involved a wireless microphone. But when we get up to 80 dB of noise, people with normal hearing, we did college students on this, and they couldn't even hear one sentence. And these are people with hearing loss, and on average, with the Rogers system, they were getting almost half of the sentences in a very noisy environment where people with normal hearing couldn't hear anything. And that was without any visual cues. So if you add some vision to that, you're going to be context, you're going to be doing pretty well. Okay, so the adaptive digital technology had significant improvements for the higher noise levels over the older types of technology. So it's important to me, before I start talking about devices, that I have research that supports how they are working and how beneficial they are. So I'm very happy to say that, like I said, I want everybody to wear something behind their ears, and I want it to do more than just be a hearing aid. This is available on the market today. You can close the battery door on your hearing aid when you wake up in the morning, and it will start your coffee pot. The technology is called If This Then That. So you have to have a coffee pot that has that technology that's connected to the internet, your hearing aid that has that technology that connects to the internet, you close the battery door and it goes boom, coffee pot starting. So if they can do that, then I want to be able to drive up to my garage door with my hearing aids on and say, open garage door. Because it has a microphone. It could possibly transmit a signal, just like when I push that button, it transmits a signal to open my garage door. That one's not on the market yet, but I'm giving out all my secrets now. So if you're engineers out here, you can run with them. I would like to drive down the freeway and say, what's the weather 100 miles from here? You know, so I know if I'm going to stay on the course or change my course. A lot of that you can pick up on a cell phone now, but I'd like to do it all wirelessly. I'd like to just walk up to my car and that little thing that I have on my keychain that knows that I'm the one that should open the car should be in my hearing aid. Then I don't have to remember to take my keys. I want to wake up in the morning and put this on my ear and it does everything for me. So that's my goal and what I think we're moving towards, which is why we need to find out what your needs are so that as this new technology comes along, we can help you with the devices that you need. I'd also like to have, you know, microphones in the preschool where my grandkids are so I can listen to their activities and what's going on. Now, can you imagine growing up with me as your mother and being a teenager, a mother who's doing research with wireless technology? I was so tempted to put it under the bed a few times, but I promise I never did. But this technology can be very complicated. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pass this around. This is the hearing aid that has the receiver on it. This is also a receiver, and this is the little one that I said you could attach to a different manufacturer's hearing aid. It's just put in here for a tester, and I put headphones on it, so you could just put it up to your ear like this, and you're going to hear the transmission from this microphone. So I'm going to pass that around, and you can see how that's picking up sound, and then you can take a look at that hearing aid as well.
Is on your ear?
I'm sorry?
Is this around your ear?
No, that one's just for show. I didn't put a battery in it or anything. That's just for show. But the other one you can actually put on your ear and listen and hear. Now, there's a little bit of an echo because we've got amplification here. And my mic is picking up the amplification from the speaker, and it's also sending it directly to those headphones. So when you hear that little bit of an echo, it's because we've got extra amplification coming on tonight.
That's neat.
But you can hear that, and then I can mute it, and you can tell that now it's different, and it sounds different. The sound has gone off from this microphone, and now I unmute, and the sound is back on. So it has a mute button, which is very important, so that you can cut off the conversation as well. So, because these devices can be very complicated, what we do in our program, and I'm actually starting this around the country, is a conference, which I gave you a handout. So if you didn't get one of these, please let us know. I would love for you to take one and share it with friends. A conference that we offer where you get to try hearing aids for a week, try wireless technology, and what we do is start in a clinic, but we go out every day to the real world and try the technology in the real world. So it's called Specialized Intensive Auditory Revitalization Conference. I decided the word rehab sounded old and slow, so I wanted something that sounded energetic and made you feel positive. So Revitalization is the name of our conference. And what we do is have this conference at UTD on main campus. And it's a combination of service delivery. You get to come and get a full hearing test. You get if you wear hearing aids, we evaluate those if you'd like us to. If you'd like to try something new, we'll have hearing aids available to try. We'll have other devices for you to try as well. In particular, we have 12 of these Roger Penn kits. So they come in a kit like this with a TV adapter and all of that. You can take it home for the week, try it at your TV. You can explore riding in the car with it, all the things that you would want to check out. And then we, of course, the students, the graduate students, are actually with you all week. So it's designed for couples to come, and a couple gets paired with a graduate student. So all week long, you have a question. I wonder if this could work this way. Graduate student right there to get your answer or find the answer for you. And, oh, I forgot. Yeah, you just said it right there. Oh, I forgot how this works. and the graduate students right there. And they go to dinner with us, and they make sure that what we take to dinner, like if we wanted to try this microphone at dinner, they would make sure that you got connected and could use it. Because a lot of times, what I find is our students have a 1-hour appointment with someone, and they might say, hey, they're a candidate to use this microphone. I showed them how to use it. They bought it on a trial basis. And then, they might not ever see that they come back, and they don't even know why they didn't like it. But it could have been because 2 hours later they got to the restaurant and I don't remember how to turn it on, or it didn't connect, I didn't hear, I just don't think I'm going to keep it. This technology is wonderful, but it doesn't happen in just a 1-hour appointment, in my opinion. That's why we teach our students to offer revitalization conferences or sessions, and we have those at the Collier Center if you purchase something there that will help you learn the technology and learn other strategies too. And we go out to the community. So here we are at South Fork. We had a tour there. We put this on the tour guide. If we go to the Japanese restaurant where they're cooking and making noise with the fire and he's telling good jokes, we put this on the cook so we can hear all the jokes. There's another dining experience. That was a tour at South Fork. That's out at the Gaylord. So we do different tours. And this year, you would really enjoy coming because we're going to go see Hello Dolly on Wednesday night. And we're going to use the technology down at Fair Park that's been quite advanced, improved over the last several years. So it's a guided learning with real-world practice, supportive environment, and you get to realize we test first in the clinic. Does this help you? Would you like to try it? We have lunch right there in the building that we are meeting in all week, and then we try to go out for dinner to a different restaurant. It's a week-long program. By that I mean it starts Sunday at noon and we end Thursday at noon. The students take the whole week to set it up and work with it. Again, designed for couples, but if you come as an individual, we'll pair you with somebody, or you can bring a friend. We have speech-language pathologists and audiologists working with it. And like I said, you can be fit with some equipment that we have, or have your own equipment, or it doesn't even have to be Phonak. You can say, I've heard about Starkey Halo hearing aids. My friend has that. I'd like to try it. Well, thank goodness for FedEx. We can call on Monday and have it by Tuesday at 10 a.m. And we'll call and get whatever it is that you would like to try. I've got 5 minutes. Okay. So this is the equipment that I've been talking about, passing around, that we have available, thanks to Phonak, for us to teach with. And then as I developed this program, we've taken it to University of Washington, University of Southern Florida, USF, University of Minnesota, and Ohio State. So the equipment goes there so that, this is more than $100,000 worth of equipment sitting in my lab, and it shouldn't sit there. It should always be out in somebody's university program. So we're trying to get this out to other universities as well. When you come for the week, there's 4 classes. There's an audio class, so you get a complete hearing test, whether you have hearing loss or not. And you get to sit behind the audiometer for once and see what's happening when they do the testing. We do the hearing aid checks. We also have a class on communication strategies. Like I said, it's not just a matter of putting this device on, but asking people to speak slower. And we practice that. That's another reason it's a week long, so that you can get practice with it. Audiovisual training, we show you programs on the computer that you can use, and then coping skills class, which the most important one here is changing behavior. Because I bet some of you have already had this experience where you can't hear because somebody walked away from you to another room. And then you say, hey, we need to be in the same room. Okay, yeah, that's a good idea. And it happens once, and then you forget. So the key here that we practice in our workshop is reinforcing the desired behavior. So we practice that. Thank you for coming into the room. Thank you for slowing down. That's exactly what I needed. So all of this happens during SciArc. I'm going to skip through these pictures. There's a man who said, I thought I was going to have to get a second cochlear implant. I thought I couldn't go out to eat anymore. And this is the night he tried the Roger technology in the restaurant. He was ecstatic. And he was a cochlear implant user. Okay, now the debate. I promised I would talk about big box. As you can tell, I didn't leave very much time for that argument. But you now can buy hearing aids at Costco and other places and online. So, if you go to Costco, I haven't personally been myself, but I did investigate, make some phone calls, and I've talked to people that have been. You do get a complete hearing test. They can select the hearing aid for you. You can get some of the wireless microphones through that program at Costco, so I'm happy that they are knowing that people can do better if we move the microphone closer. You return a week later, you get your fitting. I'm not sure if they do a procedure called real ear measure, which is the way we fit hearing aids when we put a little probe tube, real flexible tube in your ear canal, and we actually measure the SPL that it's making in your ear. So the same hearing aid on two different ears can give a very different response. So we measure that, and then we're at the computer and can tweak it just for your ear. They have the warranty and loss policy, loss and damage, they'll replace it one time if you lose it, and return visits, like you went back 30 days later and it sounded great, but then 2 months later it didn't sound so well, or maybe your hearing changed, they'll make those adjustments for free. That's all included, which is similar to what we would have in our program as well. Now, online, I don't have a Costco hearing aid, but I do have a hearing aid that I bought online. Okay, I think this might be the one that was $250. It comes with different size tips. I'm going to pass it around. I am going to close the battery door. If you just want to hold it up to your ear, you can hear some of the amplification without putting it all the way in your ear. Oh wait, there's an on-off switch. No, it's on, and now I'm not hearing it. I'll pass it around. I'm not going to take time to troubleshoot that, but that's what you can get if you buy a hearing aid online. And the instructions that you get come like this. Actually, what concerned me about this one is it says it's a digital hearing aid, and we have ways to test that. And according to our testing, that's an analog hearing aid. It's not doing any digital processing, so I think their advertising is a little misleading. But their output, the quality of it was not bad. The instructions were minimal. They are not regulated by the FDA like hearing aids are. So they can give you 160 dB and blow out your eardrums, and you wouldn't be protected by any legal requirements that the government has imposed upon hearing aid manufacturers. Hearing aid manufacturers have to show you what their hearing aids are doing, so the audiologist that fits them can make a good decision. Okay, the other one is, and I'm passing that around, typical price, we looked up 10, these are also called personal sound amplifiers or PSAPs. The average price was $139. And most people gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So people that were buying them online had reasonable expectations. Okay, I also want to tell you, and I'm going to pass around, a hearing aid on your iPhone. Or you can put it on your Android. These are some apps that are free. All you do is you plug in your headphone to your phone, and I'm going to pass this around, and it says start listening. So I do start listening. And if you pass that around and hold this up to your ear, you're going to hear that you have some amplification. And if I really wanted to hear what you were saying, I'd just put that close to you and then I'd have the wire. Now that's a wired device, but it's free. You're going to see great grandma on Sunday and she's not wearing her hearing aids or it's broken, download an app on your phone.
Wow.
So that's an option. But it doesn't come with any of the other wireless accessories. Okay, so the debate. I'm going to go big box on this side, I'm going to go traditional on this side, and there's only 3 slides and I'll be done. So big box it requires you to have a license to work there and dispense hearing aids, but all it requires is a high school degree to get your license in Texas to dispense hearing aids and pass an exam. Those people typically get training to operate that computer system that Costco has developed with manufacturers. Now, companies like Phonak and Resound have hearing aids that are sold at Costco. Same hearing aid, you can buy it at Costco. What you're not going to get there are a complete evaluation that is done by somebody that's had a 4-year postbaccalaureate degree with 1 year of a supervised externship. They've passed a national examination. The diagnostic test that you get from a person with a doctorate of audiology is going to be a differential diagnosis. They're going to be looking to see, is there the problem in the middle ear or the outer ear, and how's that interfacing with the inner ear? Do we need to refer you? Do you have a tumor? Some of our testing showing that there's asymmetry between your ears, and we've done further testing and it looks like your ear's responding like typical cases that have a tumor that can need to be at the doctor right away. So you're going to get a more comprehensive exam. The goal at the big box store is to fit the hearing aid for your satisfaction. Our goal is to address communication in all aspects of your life, including social, work, and safety considerations. The flashing smoke alarm, if we need to. I believe at big box stores, they're addressing your needs as you sit in that office, whereas at the audiology clinics, you can be served, you can address the whole communication aspect. This one lines up with this one. When you buy your hearing aid at Costco, you can only get it fixed at Costco. If you move to another city and you're like, oh, I think I need more power now, you can't go to an audiologist and say, we can't program a Costco hearing aid. It's proprietary to Costco. But if you buy your Widex hearing aid or your Oticon hearing aid from an audiologist, then you can go to most audiology clinics and have an adjustment made if you need to. Cost at Costco, their low end is $1,600, and low end at our center is $1,800 for a pair of hearing aids. No extra microphones or anything, just the basic entry level. So we're not that far off in terms of savings. They did include a little bit more in terms of didn't have to pay for the loss and damage. It lasted longer. Online, you can go as cheap as $50 and get some hearing. Order online, click, get a hearing aid, stick it in your ear. Maybe it'll help, you know, and maybe that's what you need first entry level. And I will say that I have my son-in-law's father. I actually recommended that he go to Costco because he'd been to an audiologist. He said, I just don't know. I just don't want to spend that much money. What do you think? I said, you should go to Costco and you should try it because I knew the financial part was his main motivation. He's actually a patent lawyer, and when I asked him later, how's the Costco hearing aid working out? I love it. I'm developing a microphone that will interface with that hearing aid so that it'll sound even better. So he recognized that there were some limitations and that, you know, and I was like, go for it. You know, I didn't go into the fact that that's already on the market. If you bought a hearing aid here, it might have come with it, but. Okay, in the big box stores, I think what can happen when you're not satisfied with it, it becomes an ITD. Okay, I told you VTE is behind the ear, ITC is in the canal, ITE is in the ear. Do you know what an ITD would be?
No.
In the drawer. When you're not satisfied, it might wind up in the drawer.
That's cute.
So our goal, again, their goal is to fit for satisfaction with that device. And when you return for adjustments, it's going to be just on their software. That's the end of the drawer. In the traditional path with the AUD degree, again, the differential diagnosis, we'll find out if there's a medical reason that's preventing the satisfaction. We want to improve quality of life. We're all about the whole life of the person, and which is why I do the workshop, to teach the students, look, this makes a difference when you can help people on a daily basis. Not that you can do that in the real world, but what I'm trying to do is overdose them so that when they are out in the real world, they will do some of these other classes along with their hearing aids. Okay, so to summarize, persons who have a doctorate of audiology degree have been trained to consider fitting communication networks of these devices depending upon your lifestyle needs. Assess your needs with a tool, the Telegram or some other tool, and then evaluate that benefit with tests like speech recognition and noise, so you know, hey, does this help me? And then recognize that we can't just give it to you in a 1-hour appointment in an office visit. It needs to be integrated into a group activity where we practice in the real world. So that's our program at UTD, and references there if you'd like to see me in afterwards to get any of those. And now I'm open for questions and debate.
Now it's your turn. Who wants to be first? Oh, you want to be first?
Yes. When you were listing the various causes of hearing loss, I think you left out one big group.
Okay.
These people strangely find it harder to hear louder noises. And this, in some cases, has even led to just sudden death. So I was wondering if you had considered in your group of therapists having some lawyers to provide divorce treatment.
So we have all the I don't respond to that yet. I wait and respond later. Is that how it works?
No, you can respond.
I can respond now?
Yeah, you
Okay.
respond that, yeah.
I'm not sure how we got from loud sounds to divorce, but maybe, so what you were describing about your ear being sensitive to loud sounds, or is that what you were
Well, one or the other complains that the other just can't hear what they're saying.
Yeah.
So they get louder and louder and louder.
Yeah.
And suddenly the one who can't hear finds that he's dead.
Oh, because you got noise, well, that's the noise-induced hearing loss, right? And then the difficulty hearing, even when it's loud enough and you still aren't hearing well, is actually part of what's happening in the aging process. We call it presbycusis. So, yes, that was a generalized list that I gave you, but there are hearing challenges that make life very difficult with people that you're living with. That's definitely a factor. So,
I just want to say I appreciate your honesty and your comparison of the competition
Oh,
to
yeah.
what you're doing.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of rare, but thank you very much.
good.
I'll ask a frivolous question here. Does the size of a person's ear, outer ear, have anything to do? I've noticed some people have very little ears, and some people have quite large ears. Does that have anything to do with hearing ability? Or the opening of the ear? I have very tiny openings to my ears.
You know, the actual external portion, the outer ear, size and shape, doesn't really impact your hearing overall ability. There's one part that does, and I'll explain that in a minute. But we have to be very careful when we test your hearing based on the size. Because sometimes when we put earphones over people who have what are called collapsing canals, we can actually see higher thresholds or higher hearing levels than you really have because your ears have collapsed and the sound's not getting in. So we have to be really careful about that. The other very interesting thing is that our ears are a tube, right? The outer ear's a tube. And I know some of you are scientists and maybe have heard of a quarter wavelength resonator. So the tube of our ear, the size of our ear, it's like blowing across a bottle. When you blow across it, makes a resonant sound. Well, it just so happens that and if you had a big tall bottle versus a little bottle, the sound you get out of the big tall bottle is going to be low or high. A low sound out of the tall bottle, and then the little bottle, you blow across it, it's going to make a higher sound. So our ear canal, being on average 2.3 centimeters, actually has a resonance right at 2600 hertz. Now, if you remember from our frequency, well, 2600 hertz, our resonance is right between that 2 and 4000 hertz, but that's where we need it, because that's where the softest sounds of speech are. How convenient that the size of our ear canal gives us a resonant boost right at the frequency range where the softest sounds of our speech are. So from that standpoint, men with larger ears have a lower resonant frequency. Babies with small, short ears get that little peak, maybe even at 6,000 hertz, at a little resonance where they actually, I call it the invisible amplifier. Your ear is amplifying because of the way it's shaped, some of the pitches, and then when we put a hearing aid in, we close that off. And so we have to compensate for that when we fit the hearing aid. I know you had a follow-up.
Well, I know my mother's ears were much different than mine, and larger openings, and she was very sensitive to being out in the wind, hurting her ears, which I've never noticed the wind bothering me. But of course, my daughter's ears with the tiny little openings, that the wax would not come out as a child, and caused a hearing problem. She had to have all that removed finally so we could understand and take speech therapy all through school. But I was also wondering if certain parts of the country, if there's more of a hearing problem, maybe, well, of course, in the middle of a city, do you think there are more people with hearing problems than, say, out in the country, or?
Yeah, as a rule, we know there's certain populations, like in Arizona, Indian tribe areas out there that have more of a propensity to middle ear infections because of genetically structures, the way they're arranged. But, because your eustachian tube is what helps equalize the pressure, and theirs is genetically a little differently. But, other than cities like Detroit with large factory population workers, versus farm, they're...
So basically, it's the same problem all over the United States or, country, world.
Yeah, and it really boils down to your noise exposure. So if you, are on a quiet farm, but you're around farm machinery, then that, equals maybe being in a noisy city with a lot of traffic.
I'd like to start with a short joke, have some commentary, and finish with another joke.
Okay.
So the first part is the gentleman who thinks he has a hearing problem. He goes to an audiologist, and he gets tested, and says, yeah, I think hearing aids will help you. And he gives him a set to try for 30 days, come back in 30 days and tell me how you're doing. He comes back in 30 days, and the doctor says, well, how's it working? He said, oh, they're great, I hear everything, just as clear as when I was a young man. He said, that's great, you tell your family? No, I didn't. Why not? He said, I changed my will 3 times.
Yes, he heard more than he had been missing out on, yeah.
Some commentary. I obviously wear 2 ears, or 2 hearing aids. And I have been for like 30 years. And I started with CICs, and I used to love with the little thing sticking out, to pull the aid out with. People look at me, what's that sticking out of here? I said, that's my antenna. And I'm now, of course, all the way up to behind the ear. I have a severe, borderline, profound hearing loss. Thank you, Army service. The VA is paying for I'm now on my 3rd set from the VA. I started out with tinnitus in my left ear, and I still have a mild element of it. Is there anything out there yet? Talk to me.
Yes, so we don't know what causes the ringing in your ears, or tinnitus or tinnitus, same thing. There's many theories about that. So some people will address, high salt intake. Some people will address stress levels. But there are devices out there now that are actually built into hearing aids that actually can give you what we call a masking little sound that can actually be matched to the sound that you're hearing for your tinnitus and try to cover it up. There's also another treatment approach that's called tinnitus retraining therapy, TRT, where you're working on different ways to distract yourself from paying attention to that. All of us have some amount of tinnitus at some time. I always get tinnitus the minute somebody starts asking me a question about it. And I'll never do research in tinnitus because I don't want to think about it all, because I hear it right now. And I was not paying attention to it before. And it could have been there. Our ears do make some spontaneous sounds on their own. And so our brain can attend to that. And then there's these treatment programs that can help you not attend to that.
Well, I'm very happy to report that after 50 plus years, my tinnitus or tinnitus is reduced in intensity, so unless I talk about it, I don't hear it.
Yeah, that's good. And
So the
sometimes,
brain adjusts.
yeah, and sometimes just getting a hearing aid picks up enough of that ambient sound, because unfortunately, you've been walking, typical, as we get older, losing our hearing, the surrounding gets softer because you're not hearing all the little clanking noises and the shuffling feet and everything. When we put a hearing aid on, all that comes back up to what might have been a normal level for us before, but our brain has to go, oh yeah, those coins over there, that's not important, or that paper rustling over there, that's not important anymore. So we kind of have to readjust to all that, but in that process, the brain may go, oh, now we're focused on not paying attention to shuffling, I don't hear the tinnitus anymore. So sometimes just getting a hearing aid helps the tinnitus.
Yes, I can understand that, being from where I'm coming from. When I take them off at night, I open the door to save the battery. Excuse me. It's almost like I go deaf because I've been wearing them for 12 to 15 hours. So inevitably, my life partner here goes to the other room facing the wrong direction and talks to me. And I have a lot of fun trying to, I can't hear through walls and around corners and so on. It's a family thing, so it's just letting people know that life with hearing loss is very interesting at times. Now, the pen, the Roger pen, I want some clarity on how, would I want to wear one of those?
So for you, as a hearing aid user, you would get benefit by your communication partner wearing it. So you go out to dinner And then you could either, if you're out with multiple people, like tonight, you could have set it in the middle of the table, and it would pick up the voices from around. This one's actually better for that because of the multiple microphone array on this one. But if you were at a conference and, like I said, you got 3 people that you're talking to while you're waiting to go into the meeting, and you could point to this one. It's very specific. I love to demonstrate this. Some of the high school students I work with get this technology, and I'll have the teachers, one talk about a vacation, one talk about a favorite recipe, and one talk about their grandchildren or something. And they'll all be talking at the same time, and the student will go like this, and they start hearing that conversation about the vacation. They go like this, and it just pulls in that conversation about the recipe.
It's a directional one.
So very directional. So you can actually make the pattern very focused, or you can tap the button and make it a little bit wider, or tap the button and make it omni.
I'll take 3.
Well, you come to SciArc and you'll get to try it all week long.
I'm very tempted.
Yes, and I want everybody to understand that the price on there is so that students learn that this is a service that we offer, and that we, it's not just, oh, I only charge people if I give them something they have in their hand. We have services to offer people, just like speech language pathologists offer therapy services. We do too in audiology. So there's a cost in there, but we do have scholarships, and so please don't let any amount in there deter you from coming. And I forgot to say this morning, it includes all your meals. We do have a little light snack for breakfast, but all lunches, dinners, and the tickets to the Myers, to the Hello Dolly, including a bus ride down there and dinner at the Fair Park.
Very
So,
good. Okay,
hope some of you are interested.
I'm interested.
Great, great. And we only
Like
take
I said,
about,
we're interested.
we're interested. We only take about 8 couples, 8 to 10, because I can't keep up with much more technology than that, being around. But I want you also to understand that it's a gift to us for you to take time to come, because the students really do learn in a very different way when they get to sit with you and hear your problems and then help, try to make a difference for you. And the last day we sit around in a big circle and we talk about what we got out of the program that week. And on more than one occasion, the couple has said, we cleared out our spare bedroom, she's moving in with us. Because there were so many suggestions throughout the week, and their life just turned around because they really were able to focus on it and go, oh yeah, we can make a plan so that we don't talk to each other from the other room. And I'll help remind you, and I'll reinforce when you do it, the way that helps me. So,
Thursday at lunch, I was at a meeting, which I go to every Thursday at lunch, with about 18 guys, most of which are seniors, and most of which probably have hearing loss, because they talk very loud. So I'm wondering if the pen would be of any assistance to me, because if I try to concentrate just on what you're saying, I'm getting ambient noise of all the other conversation.
so you're trying to listen to a speaker while men are talking?
Not a
really-
speaker, just men around the table, lunch table.
Oh, well, that's another thing with SciArc is we think it's best if one person talks at a time. So,
Not gonna happen with a table full of men or women.
well, we practice that at SciArc so that we can come up with strategies to say, I really want to be part of your group, and I might not be the only one that can't hear when both of you are talking at the same time. Could we try today to maybe have a group of 3 here and a group of 3? I mean, we do this. You would come to our class and say, this is my problem. And we would write 15 solutions on the board. And some of them may be, stop going to that group. But some of them may work for you and some of them may not. But we will brainstorm what are all the possible ways to address that situation. And that's a very good one. Again, a gift for my students to learn and try to problem solve that with you. And then, they would love to hear back and say, well, number 1 it'd work, but number 3, none of the rest of those suggestions are going to work for me. And
Well, because I've been wearing hearing aids for nearly 30 years, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten on the phone or received a phone call, and some marketer just feels hellbound and determined to their speak, their piece. And I have to say, please stop. No, this is true, I do this
They need to be.
once a week.
You're being an advocate to
Once
let
a
them
week. So
know
I said,
that,
look, I'm a senior, I wear 2 hearing aids. If you want me to understand what you're saying, you need to start all over again and speak slower.
and then the key, because that
And then
person.
start up right up again. I said, no, slower, not louder.
Uh-huh. And so you're telling them what you need, which a lot of people don't. They just go, huh? And so that's one step, telling them what you need. And then after they do it a couple, maybe after each sentence, thank you, that's exactly what I needed, because then he's gonna go, this guy's really, but it's gonna draw his attention to the fact that he made a change and it worked for you. So, and maybe he'll remember it once or twice then another time.
Well, thank you for your presentation. I found it very enlightening and for listening to me. I'll tell you the second joke.
Okay.
A senior goes to his doctor for a checkup. Doctor says, you're fine. I said, do you have any questions? He says, well, just one. I think my wife may be losing her hearing. What do you suggest? And he thinks about it for a few minutes and he says, well, when you get home tonight, stand about 30 paces behind your wife. Ask her a question. And if you don't hear anything, cut the distance in half and ask her the same question again. If you still don't hear anything, get up behind her and ask her. So he does that. He asks her, what's for dinner? Doesn't hear anything. Goes half the distance again, what's for dinner tonight? Still doesn't hear anything. Gets up right behind her, says, honey, what's for dinner? She turns around and says to him, Harry, for the 3rd time, chicken.
That's
That's a good one.
that's good.
So anyway, thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and that's a good example of how we learn to live with these challenges and have fun along the way.
Okay, we have had to leave many places because it's been too noisy. Hello,
Yeah, you got it.
Thank you.
She got it.
I said, we had to leave many places because it's been so noisy, and so it's cut back on some of our entertainment. He's turned his hearing aids all the way down to practically
I've
nothing,
taken them out.
taking them out and everything like that. Is there a solution to that? And the other question is, can these devices be used at the movie theater?
Yes, so to answer the first question, what about places that are so noisy that you have to leave? One of the things we do at SciArc is we go to noisy places like that, but we also point out that we're gonna go at 5 o'clock instead of 7 o'clock. I didn't know if you were talking about a restaurant, but that's one thing, is to pick a time of day to go that's not as noisy. And then to ask for seating that's separated from, not by the kitchen door, kind of look around to see if there's any place, or just pick your restaurants that don't have that much noise and let the management know. I've asked the management to turn down music before.
Oh,
because
I
it's-
do that all the time.
yeah, because it's too loud. So being an advocate that way, we did have a project in Austin where people went around and measured sound level in restaurants and created a little book of the quieter restaurants. So can you use them at movie theaters? Yes. You sit at the movie theater and point the microphone, towards speakers. It'll pick up and amplify somewhat. But movie theaters have, most all movie theaters now typically have what's called an infrared device. And so there's usually some red panels up at the front of the stage, and then you pick up the receiver, and then the receiver communicates with that infrared signal and delivers the signal to your ears. Some of these devices like this or the Roger Pen can be plugged into that receiver, so you can still keep your hearing aids on, but you can get the signal through their sound system into the Roger Pen, into your hearing aids. That's what we do at Fair Park. So they have receivers that are adjusted specifically for their hall, and then we take that signal, put it into the Roger Pen or whatever works with your hearing aids. And when we go to Hello Dolly, we typically try one technology the first half, and then a different type of technology the third half, the second half, first half, second half. Or sometimes people say, I just want to enjoy the second half, I'm not going to try anything. And we go, fine, that's perfectly fine, but we're here to help if you want to try something else. We also take captioning. We get the script ahead of time, and then we format it to come out on your phone or on an iPad that we have, and you can scroll back and see what you missed. You can scroll forward, see what is gonna happen next. And so that's another option we offer just with our conference. They're interested in adding that technology, but they don't have it routinely now.
Here's the final comment. I can ask the restaurant to turn the sound down.
Let's grab the mic again, thanks.
I can ask the restaurant to turn the sound down because it's too loud. But how do you go to a live concert and ask them to turn the sound down?
Then you take out your hearing aids and you take earplugs. A lot of us take earplugs when we go to those concerts, yes.
I presume lots of research is being done. I know that in Germany, they're very proficient in dentistry. Is there any particular country that's doing research now that have?
Well, you know, one of the cochlear implant companies is based in Australia. So the National Acoustics Laboratory, NAL, has contributed a lot of research to our hearing aid fitting. So I would say Australia is a pretty hotbed for that. The European countries, the UK is very active in the research programs. Canada and US, I would say, are mostly the ones that we look to see more of the research coming out.
What is your opinion, or is there any research on the noise machines that people use to put their children to sleep? I have 2 grandchildren since birth have these machines in their room, and one day I was staying at their house in the next bedroom, and my daughter-in-law said, I heard your TV when I was going down the hall, but when I went into the baby's room, I can't hear it, so it's okay. And I'm going, if the baby cannot even hear the TV at all, I mean, you know, it's so loud. And you can't tell me that that's not damaging their ears. And I went online, and there's not any real.
I haven't seen any research on that, but Colleen Laprelle is our expert at UTD on the effects of noise on hearing. She's our guest speaker this year at SciArc, so I can definitely ask her. But you can also download an app, a free app on your phone that's just in your Play Store, put in sound level meter. And you can measure that sound and say, oh, I'd just be curious, what is the sound level when she goes to sleep? And there are OSHA guidelines, you can do research on that and see, but it would have to be pretty loud. Now, my granddaughter does that as well.
Really?
I'm probably more concerned about, is she ever gonna be able to fall asleep without the
Yes,
the
and I thought
noise?
about that too.
But the 5-year-old granddaughter can fall asleep without the noise on. So,
I just hate them, I think they're awful.
so, yeah, I appreciate your concern. I don't know if anybody that's done research on that, though.
I have long felt, and I'm fairly well convinced of this, that what we hold in our consciousness about ourselves has a whole lot to do with what the physical experience is. And one example of that that's pretty extreme, I think it was years ago at Harvard, some guys just thought they'd pull a prank on one of their classmates. And they blindfolded him and tied him up and tied him to a chair and said, now we're going to cut your arm and bleed you to death. And they scraped his arm with something so it felt like it was cut, and they dripped lukewarm water on it, and he died. Because he believed they were bleeding him to death.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
That's how powerful our thinking is.
Yes.
And it works in the reverse as well. Another thing that you've really got me interested in thinking about now, years ago I remember reading that the government had developed helmets that pilots could wear that would listen to, if you will, all of their thought processes, and they were designing aircraft that they could fly by thought rather than physical movement of the controls. Now, when you think about this, every thought is an electrical pattern in the brain. Pretty soon you're going to be able to develop hearing aids that you can effectively have telepathy with other people, so no one else can hear it. And I have also been reading that they have discovered that every single individual on Earth has a very specific frequency pattern that is theirs, just like their fingerprints. So it's possible that there could be totally private communication developed electronically.
I think that's possible. I'm excited about anything we can do that will help us communicate better, even if it's just reading something in your eyeballs. So I'm excited that we can hopefully live long enough to see all these great developments.
When people die, what happens to their excess, their little hearing aids? Are they collected and?
Oh, yes,
Give them to
they can be
people?
donated to places like the Callier Center, and they're cleaned up, reconditioned, and used as loaners. Or we have a reconditioned hearing aid program for minimal cost if people wants to, if there's some that are, that we can, what happens in the hearing technology now that they're programmable, when I trained with hearing aids, it was a screwdriver only, and they were called trim pots, and we adjusted them. And then digital aids came along, programmable aids, and so now it's all computer, and that changes, just like your cell phone changes so fast. So depending on how old the hearing aid is, whether or not we can use it. I use a lot of my aids though for teaching, so that undergrads can open battery doors and not have to worry that, I've got to use it tomorrow in the clinic. So donated aids are a big help for any training program, for sure. And then if I hear of school districts get kids that can't afford hearing aids and somebody's donated them, I always make those available, and say, well, we've got this pair. But again, sometimes it gets hard to program them because the software changes, and we don't have the older versions.
I have one other little thing.
Okay, we got one more microphone back here, and then we can, yes?
When my daughter was 10, she had osteotoma, a tumor, and they said that if they hadn't seen it when they did, it was going to kill her because it was right near her brain. But it had destroyed the 3 bones in her middle ear. So she was actually eligible for a cochlear implant, but she refused it because she was a teenager and didn't want her hair, the whole thing with this. It's going to be this mark forever. With those other hearing aids help that one ear? Because she had a total mastectomy done on that ear. So I wasn't sure, if there's anything other than the cochlear implant that would help.
So it's just a middle ear problem, and her cochlea was fine?
She was eligible for a cochlear implant, so I'm assuming that was fine. But her inner ear bones were destroyed. I know they said that to me. And they had the whole canal, the ear canal was a mastectomy.
Yeah, mastectomy. So would hearing aids help her now?
That's what I'm just wondering if it was only a cochlear implant that would help and she didn't want it.
No, I think there's probably other things. I don't know the whole story, but it sounds like that from what you're saying, it was an outer middle ear problem. And then that she could have benefited. There's also a device I didn't talk about tonight called bone-anchored hearing aid. So it's a little box-looking piece that picks up the sound and converts it to vibrations. And you either wear it on a headband or you wear it you have a little pedestal implanted surgically, and it connects to that and it vibrates. So I'm not sure if they were talking about a cochlear implant or a bone-anchored type of implant. So if they just said implant, it might not have been the electrode array in the cochlea, because you would never put that into a normal cochlea. If her cochlea was normal, her auditory nerve might have been normal. But
whatever it was, they then put a headset on her to show her the improvement it was made, and she was like, oh my goodness, she didn't know she was missing out on so much.
Exactly. Yeah.
But she still wasn't convinced. So.
Yeah, well, even if a person's not a candidate, even if they're a candidate for cochlear implant but they don't want it, then we can still provide some amplification so that they can hear some of the vowel sounds and combine that with training of watching people's faces, and there's the strategies that we're talking about. So it's not just the device. There would have been other things to help her with in therapy, I think, too.
I had one other little thing.
Okay?
I was told if you just wear one hearing aid, that it pulls down the hearing ability on the other side. Is that true?
There is some research that shows wearing 2 helps your hearing maintain abilities more so than if you just have it on one side. So I think it was they found a group of people that had just worn it once and did pre-test and then tested them say 5 years later, and their performance has declined more than the people who wore 2 hearing aids on both ears. So I always tell people, I say, well, I don't know, I have some trouble, but I don't know if it's bad enough to really try a hearing aid. And I'm like, it's gonna be an adjustment. So if this is normal and you're here, you only have this far to make adjustment if you try it sooner than if you wait till you're way down here, your hearing's really changed and your brain is reorganized and its sounds are different. Because now we give you back this high-pitched sound and it sounds tinny because your brain, what happens is they found in animals that if you deprive one area of the brain of a certain pitch, then that part of that cortex doesn't respond to that pitch anymore. It starts responding to other stimuli. So you no longer have that part of your brain that responds to those high frequencies because it's reorganized. Then I give you high frequencies back through the hearing aid and make them loud enough, and your brain is like, what's that sound? It doesn't sound natural at all. I don't want that. So the sooner we keep, or the more we keep our brain getting all of that input consistently, the better off in the long run. It would be, yes.
There was mention of thought processes affecting tinnitus. I'm wondering now, not just that area, but other areas even in hearing, if anyone has considered hypnotherapy.
To help you hear better?
Yeah. Because certainly thought has a difference and makes a difference in tinnitus. It may well make a difference in other things.
It could, but my first thought that comes to my mind is that we've got an external signal that's usually speech mixed with noise. And I don't know, I can't imagine how hypnotherapy could separate that acoustic signal that's already complex with speech and noise overlapping, how hypnotherapy could do that, unless somehow unless I got hypnotized to just your pitch of your voice and then somehow could extract it from that. But I do have some other information about the brain waves and what they're doing with hearing aids now, that actually are the hearing aids able to monitor some of the brain waves and then separate the speech from the noise that way.
Well, I was just wondering if anyone had thought of trying
I've never seen that.
hypnotherapy for the difference in hearing and not hearing even.
Yeah. I haven't seen that.
When I was first, well, I had tinnitus when I came out of the service. After several years of listening to it and knowing that my sound reception was decreasing, I went to an audiologist who gave me a test and gave me one aid for my right ear. And I didn't understand it. I said, why would you do that? Because we want to keep the good ear from becoming bad. So for several years, I wore an aid only in my right ear. And I was having some imbalance of sound. And my problem all along has never been volume, it's always been clarity.
Yeah.
So then I got a second. Well, the second was 2 or 3 years newer technology, and I still had that imbalance. And finally, I had to buy a pair, if you will, in order to find some
Balance.
equilibrium.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So,
Your brain reorganized during that time, you only had the input to the one,
correct.
somewhat, perhaps.
So is my situation the norm, or was it out of the ordinary?
You said it was how long ago?
Are you sitting down?
If-
About mid-70s, late 70s.
Yeah, I would say that binaural amplification has been a pretty standard protocol for at least the last 20 years. So I'm not sure, I mean, we always recommend bilateral amplification if it's appropriate, but sometimes people choose financially to just wear one. So, I don't know.
Well, it was recommended to me.
Was that a VA situation?
No,
Oh.
I was before that.
Interesting.
This was in the 70s, and VA didn't approve me till.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. They weren't trained in Texas, I'm sure. No. Were they? Maybe not.
I don't know.
Stem cell, does that help hearing?
The stem cell replacement therapy, not that I know of at this point. Like I said, the hair cell regeneration is pharmacological effect that's from an external source, but not, I haven't heard anything about stem cell.
This is related to hearing, is that when I fly, I get intense pain, and then when I finally get off the plane, I have very low hearing ability, and still the pain, and it goes on for about 48 hours. Is there something that can be done?
For the chin.
Yes,
I've tried chewing gum and I've tried, you know, all of those kind of things.
yeah, I think, I mean, besides having an evaluation of your structure, because what's happening is your eustachian tube is not equalizing the pressure. So a physician might recommend something like an antihistamine before you fly that would maybe try to help open up a little bit, or maybe the structure is such that, I don't know that there could be a surgical procedure, but you're doing the right things, the drinking, and I've even asked for warm compresses when I had an infection that kind of helped. At least the warm compresses draw blood to the area and make it feel better. And I don't know if that would reduce the duration of your pain afterwards or not, but it sounds like it's more of a structural issue that maybe radiologically they could look at it and see if there's something that could be done.
Thanks.
So, yeah, sorry.
Along the same lines, I get pressure sometimes when we fly. Not that we fly that often. I'm still trying to develop my own cape. But I pop my ears.
Yes.
She can't, or doesn't press hard enough to do it, but I pop my ears fairly frequently, and I was concerned
Yeah.
that I was doing something damaging to my hearing. Then a doctor said I'm just equalizing the pressure in my eustachian tube.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So that's a common solution when you're traveling and the ears stump up.
My daughter had swimmer's ear at one time. I thought she'd never get over it. And finally, we discovered vodka was good to put in your ear. Anybody
Oh.
that goes swimming a lot, yeah,
Alcohol
yeah.
effect.
Well, the cheap alcohol's not that great, but vodka's what, 100 proof or something.
But you always had to qualify when you said you gave your daughter vodka, right? Oh, in her ears, of course. Well, thank you so much for your interest tonight, and I do hope that some of you will consider SciArc and share it with your friends. We're really looking to get that our list made up so we can prepare our technology for you, and I can tell you guys would be great additions to our group. So, thank you.
So now they respond.
Oh, okay.
Then you get to respond to what they else.
Oh,
Sit over here.
okay. I'm just gonna turn this off.
Still working.
Okay, now it's your turn to talk. So anybody wants, anything they want to say, either for or against what the speaker had to say, now is the time to do it. Who wants to be first? Someone has to be first. I can't believe this. She did such a great job that nobody has a comment?
What do you say?
Well, it's whatever you want to say.
It's not
There's nothing to disagree with.
Yeah.
It's agree or disagree, it doesn't matter. Everybody's, well, I guess I'm the last one standing. I want to thank our speaker for doing such a great job here tonight. And she did such a good job that no one has a comment. It's unbelievable. This is the first time that this has ever happened in this since in 10 years.
Nothing to argue about.
Nothing to argue about. Anyway, you did a great job, and it's really good to have someone here that opens this up and gets the word out. And this is good for anybody that knows anybody that has a hearing problem. They can help them and get to her. So anyway, you get the last word. You get to comment on the comment here and close the meeting.
Okay. My last word is that my email address is on that flyer on the inside, and I would love to hear from you if you have other questions or suggestions. Again, I just hope that you'll let your acquaintances know about the conference and about the Callier Center, if we can help in any way with your needs. And again, if you came to us and said, now one time at SciArc we did try to get a Costco hearing aid for a patient. They said, I really think I want to try Costco hearing aids. And I said, okay, let's do that. So I called him and I said, can we just get one? Just to see, you know, how it compares. We want to run tests on it. And they wouldn't, no, you have to come in, you have to have a hearing test. They couldn't, there wasn't one I could just borrow for a day. So if you wanted to try Costco, we couldn't do it during the conference. But if you came to the conference with Costco, or you wanted to try one of these online hearing aids and compare, it would be a great opportunity to do that. And also, if you're interested in any of the research projects, we're doing the smartphone project where we're connecting the phone and playing sentences and background noise, and we pay $50 a session to come and do that. We'll pay you to do that. So send me an email if you want to be part of our research as well.
Where do I sign up?
Send me an email and I will get you going right away. Yes, that would be great. Yes. So thank you again. You guys are a wonderful group. I think it's amazing that you meet every week.
You know, Paula, if a person runs a high fever, can that damage their hearing?
Well, that's it for tonight. They keep us here, our speaker, they kick us out of here at 10:30, just so you know. Our speaker's still here, we like to talk.